Hazardous materials handling and storage. Hello folks, welcome to the lesson on hazardous materials handling and storage. In this lesson, we will explore the crucial aspects of handling and storing hazardous materials safely. Understanding the risks associated with these substances is vital for the safety of yourself, your colleagues, and the environment. We will cover the different types of hazardous materials, their labels and placards, and emergency response procedures in case of a hazmat incident. Hazardous materials, often referred to as hazmat, are substances that pose a risk to people, property, or the environment due to their chemical nature. These materials can be chemical, biological, radioactive, or physical agents. Common examples include flammable liquids, corrosive substances, toxic chemicals, and reactive materials. Effective handling and storage of these materials require a solid understanding of their properties and potential hazards. Let's break down some basic concepts. Flammables, substances that can catch fire easily, such as gasoline and alcohol. Corrosives, chemicals that can cause destruction to living tissue or severe corrosion of materials, like acids and bases. Toxics, materials that can cause harm or death if inhaled, ingested, or absorbed, including pesticides and lead compounds. Reactive materials, substances that can explode, polymerize, or release dangerous gases when reacted, such as sodium metal or peroxides. As you can see in the video, and an image here illustrates different types of hazardous materials. Handling and storing hazardous materials. Handling hazardous materials requires vigilance and adherence to established protocols. Personal protective equipment (PPE). Always wear appropriate PPE such as gloves, goggles, aprons, and respirators as dictated by the Material Safety Data Sheets (MSDS) for each material. Training. Ensure you are adequately trained to handle specific types of hazardous materials safely. This includes understanding how to use equipment and knowing emergency procedures. Labeling. Keep all containers properly labeled to avoid any confusion or mishandling. Labels should display the name, the hazard class, and any specific handling or storage instructions. Ventilation. Use fume hoods or adequate ventilation systems to prevent the accumulation of toxic fumes or vapors. Avoid contamination. Do not mix chemicals unless you are sure of the reaction's outcome. Even seemingly harmless materials can become dangerous when combined incorrectly. Storing hazardous materials safely.
Proper storage is crucial to minimize the risks associated with hazardous materials. Follow these guidelines to ensure safe storage. Segregate incompatible, store incompatible materials separately to prevent accidental reactions. Flammables away from oxidizers, acids from bases, etc. Use appropriate containers. Ensure all containers are compatible with the materials stored, resistant to leakage, and properly sealed. Temperature control. Store materials at temperatures recommended by the manufacturer to prevent degradation or hazardous reactions. Inspect regularly. Conduct regular inspections of storage areas to identify leaks, corrosion, or any signs of compromise in the containment. Access control. Limit access to storage areas to trained personnel only. As you can see here, a video demonstrates proper storage techniques which could be effective to reinforce your learning experience on hazardous material handling and storage.
Understanding hazmat labels and placards. Handling hazardous materials requires vigilance and adherence to established protocols. Personal protective equipment (PPE). Always wear appropriate PPE such as gloves, goggles, aprons, and respirators as dictated by the Material Safety Data Sheets (MSDS) for each material. Training. Ensure you are adequately trained to handle specific types of hazardous materials safely. This includes understanding how to use equipment and knowing emergency procedures. Labeling. Keep all containers properly labeled to avoid any confusion or mishandling. Labels should display the name, the hazard class, and any specific handling or storage instructions. Ventilation. Use fume hoods or adequate ventilation systems to prevent the accumulation of toxic fumes or vapors. Avoid contamination. Do not mix chemicals unless you are sure of the reaction's outcome. Even seemingly harmless materials can become dangerous when combined incorrectly. Storing hazardous materials safely. Proper storage is crucial to minimize the risks associated with hazardous materials. Follow these guidelines to ensure safe storage. Segregate incompatibles. Store incompatible materials separately to prevent accidental reactions. Flammables away from oxidizers, acids from bases, etc. Use appropriate containers. Ensure all containers are compatible with the materials stored, resistant to leakage, and properly sealed. Temperature control. Store materials at temperatures recommended by the manufacturer to prevent degradation or hazardous reactions. Inspect regularly. Conduct regular inspections of storage areas to identify leaks, corrosion, or any signs of compromise in the containment. Access control. Limit access to storage areas to trained personnel only. See this video here demonstrating proper storage techniques, which could be effective here to reinforce your learning on hazardous materials handling and storage. Hazard classifications. Familiarize yourself with the 9 classes of hazardous materials as defined by the Department of Transportation. Explosives, gases, flammable liquids, flammable solids, oxidizing agents and organic peroxides, toxic and infectious substances, radioactive materials, corrosives, miscellaneous dangerous goods. Always take the time to read and understand these labels and placards before handling any hazardous material. This knowledge can prevent accidents and ensure swift and correct responses in emergencies. Emergency response procedures for hazmat incidents. Despite the best precautions, accidents can still happen. Knowing how to respond quickly and effectively to hazmat incidents is critical. Immediate evacuation. If a spill or exposure occurs, evacuate the affected area immediately and call for help. Secure the area. Prevent further exposure or contamination by sealing off the area if possible. Report the incident. Notify your supervisor and the emergency response team immediately. Use emergency equipment. Utilize eyewash stations, safety showers, fire extinguishers, or other emergency equipment if needed. Follow emergency plans. Adhere to your facility's emergency response plan and assist emergency responders by providing details about the materials involved. Right here, you can see a video and an infographic summarizing emergency procedures to help you reinforce key actions, conclusion, and key takeaways. Handling and storing hazardous materials is a critical responsibility that requires thorough knowledge and attention to safety protocols. Always prioritize your safety and that of others by following established guidelines for handling, storage, labeling, and emergency response. Familiarize yourself with different types of hazardous materials and their associated risks. Adhere to handling and storage procedures as outlined by your company and regulatory authorities. Understand and correctly interpret hazmat labels and placards. Stay prepared for emergencies by knowing the protocols and having confidence in using emergency equipment. By mastering these principles, you contribute to a safer workplace environment and help mitigate the risks associated with hazardous materials. Summary. Here's a summary of forklift hazardous materials handling and storage pre-operation checks. 1. Hazardous materials identification. Identify the type of hazardous materials being handled and stored. 2. Forklift inspection. Inspect the forklift for damage, wear, and proper function. 3. Operator training. Ensure the operator is trained on hazardous materials handling and storage procedures. Safe handling procedures. 1. Personal protective equipment (PPE). Wear PPE such as gloves and safety glasses when handling hazardous materials. 2. Load securing. Ensure loads of hazardous materials are properly secured to prevent shifting or falling. 3. Forklift speed. Operate the forklift at slow speeds when handling hazardous materials. 4. Spill response. Have a spill response plan in place in case of an accident.
Storage procedures. 1. Designated storage areas. Store hazardous materials in designated areas, away from incompatible materials. 2. Labeling and signage. Label and sign storage areas to indicate the presence of hazardous materials. 3. Secondary containment. Use secondary containment measures, such as spill pallets, to prevent spills and leaks. 4. Regular inspections. Regularly inspect storage areas to ensure compliance with regulations and safety procedures. Emergency procedures. 1. Emergency response plan. Have an emergency response plan in place in case of an accident or spill. 2. Fire extinguishers. Ensure fire extinguishers are readily available and easily accessible. 3. First aid kits. Ensure first aid kits are readily available and easily accessible. 4. Reporting incidents. Report all incidents involving hazardous materials to the relevant authorities. This is how we come to the end of the lesson on hazardous materials handling and storage. Thank you for your engagement on this lesson, and remember that safety is always the priority when dealing with hazardous materials. Stay informed, stay protected. See you in the next lecture, folks. Happy learning.